Welcome to HFY Stories. Please subscribe to the channel. Your one click means the world to me. The clock on his slate read 90 seconds, and General Keith Moore was about to trade the rest of his career for the answer it demanded. He remembers holding it wrong, too tight, corners biting his palm, while three armored figures below cut through his security line like it was smoke. 17 prisoners waited behind a door that would not hold, and the woman who had made this promise to him wasn't a soldier under his command. She wasn't anything under his command. She was a stranger with a cracked helmet who had appeared on his station 11 hours earlier and asked, politely, whether he recognized any of the marks on it. He hadn't. That was the whole trouble. It started at a weapons stall, though he only heard about that part secondhand. A trader named Core had been holding court to a knot of onlookers, making sport of a human in battered armor drifting through the market like she had nowhere urgent to be. Broken plating. A helmet split down the center, its cracks catching the light strangely, almost by design. Core called her a refugee clinging to junk. His Draconis companion agreed louder. Neither of them noticed she'd already told the weapons vendor exactly which coupling in his rifle was about to fail and by how much. The kind of detail that comes from having fixed the same problem under fire, not from a manual. A cluster of young Caltharid blades found her next, hunting an audience. Their leader recited his credentials like a shopping list, 17 fighting forms, 6 centuries of tactics studied. She listened, unbothered, and asked him what he'd actually won. When he reached for his hilt instead of answering, that was when Keith Moore's own boots hit the deck plating, drawn by the smell of a fight about to happen in his market. He hadn't come to referee. He came because something about her helmet had already snagged in the back of his mind from a briefing photo years old, and when he got close enough to really look at it, the pattern stopped him cold. "You don't see what's random about this," he told the young Caltharid, tracing a gouge near her temple without touching it. "Nothing here is random." He named it scar by scar. The gouge, Vorak Warclaws, a legion that didn't survive the Proxima campaign. The scorch across the crown, Kilrathi's siege cannon, and the core that fired it was ash within the year. A deep dent behind the ear that could only have come from a Draconis warhammer, the kind only given to those who'd taken 100 kills in single combat, and there hadn't been a Draconis champion standing for over a decade. He watched the market go quiet around him, watched the boy who'd started this go pale. "Every mark," Keith Moore said, and his own voice surprised him with how much weight it carried, "is a culture. Gone, and she isn't wearing trophies." He looked at her. "You're wearing a grave, aren't you?" She didn't deny it. She told him about a Vorak charge so hopeless and so magnificent she still thought about it. About a Kilrathi siege master who chose to die inside his machine rather than surrender it. About carrying a Draconis champion's body to his people's Hall of the Dead with her own hands because somebody needed to. 47 cultures, she said finally, quiet enough that the whole market had to lean in to catch it. All extinct, all because they were standing where humanity needed to walk. Core's mockery had curdled into something like shame by then. The boy who challenged her mumbled an apology he clearly meant. And Keith Moore, a general who had built his career on being unreadable, found he had nothing to say to a woman who called herself a survivor instead of a warrior and seemed to believe there was a meaningful difference. That should have been the end of an odd afternoon. Instead, she told him she was hunting a rumor. Ultron Void Rangers, supposedly wiped out 15 years ago at their fortress moon, might have survivors in his sector. She wasn't hunting them to finish a war. She was carrying a message from their dying commander, a promise 15 years unpaid. His aide had chosen that exact moment to whisper in his ear that Hegemony Intelligence placed several wanted Ultron fugitives inside this system. "You're planning to interfere with lawful apprehension," he'd said, falling back on the only language that still felt solid under his feet. "I intend to keep a promise," she answered, "even if it costs me a fight with you, especially then." Then she tilted her head, and the cracks in her visor seemed to catch fire from the overhead lights. "My helmet remembers 47 cultures, General. Do you want yours to be the 48th? He'd ordered his men to stand down, before he understood why. The alarms started 20 minutes later. 3 Rangers had already breached the outer ring, cutting through his security teams with a precision that made his stomach drop, because he recognized the technique, and a moment later so did she. "I taught them that," she said, watching a Ranger execute a textbook breach on the security feed. "Cross-training initiative. Wartime. You trained your enemies to fight you. I trained soldiers to survive a war I knew wasn't finished with them yet." She didn't look away from the screen. "In 4 minutes they hit the detention block. 17 Alteran civilians are being held there for transport to the camps tomorrow. Elderly, children, collaborators, your report will say. Family is what they are." That's when the slate found its way into his hand, counting down, and she named her price: safe passage for the Rangers, freedom for the prisoners, and an end to the hegemony's hunt for what remained of the Alteran people. He told her he had no authority. She told him to find someone who did, and dropped through the access hatch before he'd finished arguing. 45 seconds left on his slate when she stepped into the open below the barricades and called out something in flawless Alteran battle cant. The 3 Rangers froze. "Identify yourself," their commander barked. "Instructor, authorization, Sunset 777. The man tore off his helmet and laughed, a raw, exhausted sound. "Of course it's you." He'd aged 20 years in 15. "Velthar," he said, when she asked his name like she already knew it. "I suppose you've come to end this for us." "I've come to make sure ending it doesn't cost you your life." She told him 3 of the marks on her helmet belonged to his people: a reactor specialist who'd held Kepler, a demolitions expert lost at Arcturus, and the commander who died screening the evacuation at New Alara before him. Velthar's jaw worked. His people held their weapons steady, but their eyes had gone to their commander. "You're asking us to trust the government that tried to erase us," he said. "I'm asking you to trust me. The same instructor who taught you the best victory is the one where everyone's still breathing to see tomorrow." Keith Moore watched it from above, watched a man who could have died fighting choose instead to lower his weapon because a stranger with a broken helmet asked him to. "Stand down," Velthar told his people. "The war's been over 15 years. Past time we noticed." The slate in Keith Moore's hand still read 4 seconds when the last rifle went to safe. Hours later, in a quiet room off the docking ring, 17 Alterans heard the terms of their freedom for the first time. An old woman near the front pressed a hand to her mouth. "We thought we were the last of us," she said, voice cracking on the word last. "You're not the last," Velthar told her. "You just scattered. There are others building lives on the frontier worlds. This gets you to them safely." The woman turned to study the human standing near the doorway, the one the younger prisoners had already started calling by a name she hadn't given them. "Phoenix," someone whispered, the one from the old stories. "You broke us," the woman said, without accusation, only the flat weight of fact. "And now you're the one carrying us out." "The war ended," the human answered. "Someone has to make sure it stays ended." That was the moment Keith Moore understood what he'd actually agreed to on that observation deck with a countdown in his fist. Not a hostage negotiation, but a debt finally being paid off, one name at a time. He found her again after the transports had cleared the bay, the lights of the departing ships shrinking to points against the dark. "Council ratified it," he told her. "Full protected status for the Alteran survivors. They're also offering you a position. Liaison for refugee affairs. Immunity, compensation, whatever you want written into the contract." The sound she made wasn't quite a laugh. Politicians never learn what can't be bought. "Is that a no?" "That's a recognition that some debts don't take payment." She turned toward the corridor, already half a stranger again among the traders and dockhands. "They take remembering." "What will you do now? Your mission here is finished." "There are other survivors, other promises still waiting to be kept." She touched the deepest scar on her helmet, almost absently, the way another person might touch a scar on their own skin. "That helmet," he called after her. 47 cultures, you said. How many more before you're done?" She didn't turn around. "As many as it takes." He watched her go, watched the crowd close around her without ever quite touching her, the way a current bends around something too heavy to move. Keith Moore kept the slate from that day, powered down, in a drawer in his quarters. Some nights he takes it out and looks at his own reflection in the dark glass and wonders whether he'd have the nerve to wear a mark like hers if the debt ever came due in his name instead.